Oh, hi. I decided to kill myself on an abnormally hot spring day. The snow was melting, and I vividly remember that the wind felt refreshing on my bare arms. Everything was smelling fresh, and people were beginning to smile more because the Canadian winter was coming to an end. It was my junior year in high school. That's grade 11 for my Canadian viewers. I was standing at my locker. Around me was a buzz with excitement. Bits of conversation were floating around me, parties people had been invited to, new relationships that had been started, stupid teachers who just didn't understand us. It was exuberant teenagers who thought they understood the world, who were full of love and insecurities and hormones. But I wasn't thinking about that. All I could think about was this unresolved pain that burned inside of my gut, that caused my heart to physically hurt and make my mind believe that there was not a solution. Well, there was one solution my mind was devious enough to convince me of. There was a way to get rid of the pain, to free the world of my supposed awfulness, to make the hurting stop. And so I walked to the pharmacy on that abnormally hot spring day in just my t-shirt. I bought the biggest bottle of Advil that I could find. I had written my note the night before. The decision made so much sense, and I wanted to make it clear about why I needed to do what I was about to do. This video has been so funny so far, hasn't it? I apologize. The thing about it with me is that there was no villain. This was not a TV show or film where an evil antagonist forces our devilishly handsome hero to thwart them. Instead, it was untreated mental health issues coupled with poor self-esteem that were my greatest enemies. My notes simply discussed my hidden sexuality, the general feeling of hopelessness I had, and a few people who I was sorry to have hurt with my decision. Although even that was couched with a "you probably don't care that I'm gone" caveat. So on that unusually hot spring day, I was at my locker. My note was out on the top shelf. I cracked the seal on the Advil bottle. Now, I only had to decide where the act was going to take place. So spoiler alert, it didn't happen. I went on to university, survived a terrible decade known as my 20s, and then began making these videos, something that nobody asked for and clearly nobody wants. I wanted to take the time to share that backstory so you'll understand my reactions to watching 13 Reasons Why. If you've watched for a while, you'll know that I became obsessed with this show last year when its first season debuted on Netflix. And this is now the warning that I will be giving spoilers to both seasons of the show, so you've been warned. What I was drawn to was this central mystery of a high school girl named Hannah who committed suicide, left behind a bunch of audio tapes, and how each episode unraveled the mystery a tiny little bit. Characters who we'd been introduced to in one episode as a supporting role could become prominent in the next, or they'd become more or less evil as revelations were uncovered. It was well acted, well directed, and it looked beautiful. It was also extremely brutal in its depictions of violence. This included scenes of rape and other sexual assault. And while this is a fictionalized story where reactions are often melodramatic and emotions are usually dialed up to 11, there was an internal logic that I felt the show had. For as extreme as it would go, the characters felt like characters. These were teenagers who were struggling through life as a teenager does. And yes, my favorite criticism of these types of stories rears its head because these 16 and 17-year-olds are, first, very attractive and portrayed by 25-year-olds, and in one case, I'm convinced, a 30-year-old. There's no way this person is in high school. Now, the first season was not without controversy. First, being the conceit of the show, where our protagonist Clay has to listen to each of these tapes over multiple days, feels like a pretty hackneyed plot device. Many groups criticize it for making it look like suicide was an honorable choice, that it could serve to punish others. More egregious, I think, is the idea that if only Hannah could have felt the love of one kind boy, then all of this stuff wouldn't have happened. And while I understand how things could be read that way, I never felt that. Every character, and I mean that, every character is damaged in this show. Most make bad decisions. That includes parents, teachers, fellow students, siblings. Everyone is carrying baggage, and while there turns out to be a real mustache-twirling villain by the end, there is a sense that there is no completely right person or completely wrong person. Every character was altruistic at certain points and a complete asshole at others. And I enjoyed it for showing that humanity is much more complicated than the standard good/evil dichotomy allows for. I was ravenous for more after the first season. There were a few cliffhangers and I really wanted to see what happened next. So season 2 debuted last week and, oh boy, all the faults from the first season have been amplified. I already said that emotions were dialed up to 11 in season season 1? Well, in season 2, the dial officially broke. We're at least 13 or 14. To the point where certain characters don't feel like real people anymore. Things happen because the plot needs them to, not because it makes for dramatic resonance. The worst offender is Clay, who admittedly does say that he's just angry all the time, but he seems to just hate everyone, when there seems to be a very clear target that his anger could be directed towards. That person being Bryce, the mustache-twirling villain who returns and is shown to be even more of a sociopath than we thought. I could go through every character and why I think the show in the second season does a disservice to them, but I think I can do that quicker by going into my two biggest criticisms. Number one, there's not enough story here to justify 13 episodes. Many times the plot is left treading water because they need to fill the time. Plot threads are redone a couple of times in certain cases, which drags the show down. And not to digress too much, but this is kind of a Netflix problem where most shows could be 8 episodes, and yet they seemingly insist on a few more even when there isn't enough to stretch it to that. So the plot is a bit of a letdown, especially when I was gripped every episode in season 1. But I think even worse is some of the dialogue they make the characters say. And why I hate that is that even after the season is over, I still am drawn to these characters. These characters deserved, or rather the actors playing these characters, deserved better. Yes, they're broken, in some cases literally, and they're hurting, and they're trying to figure it out together. But you have them behaving out of character, which ruins the drama. And then, that final episode. Another rape is shown graphically, this time to Tyler, and he decides to go and shoot up the school dance. This is incredibly timely as there seems to be a new school shooting in the United States every week, but this is completely ham-fisted. I was really affected by it because I could see the writing on the wall back in season 1, but I was physically uncomfortable having them show this character make the decision he does. But I think it also undercuts the message when Clay can come out and basically say, hey, we like you, even though they haven't even shown a shred of that for the majority of the show. And that somehow causes him not to go through with it. It felt exploitative in the worst way, especially when the showrunner, Brian Gorky, justified it by saying that the male rape scene was there to tell truthful stories about things that young people go through in as unflinching a way as we can. Which, I guess, okay, fine, but maybe it's because I've been out of school for so long, but this seems above and beyond what kids deal with. Bullying, sure. Issues of consent? Oh yeah. School shootings? Unfortunately, yes. But full-on beatdowns in bathrooms and being raped by mop handles? I don't know if that's a truthful story. So season 2 has been a huge letdown, and I may come back for season 3, but I'm definitely not as excited for it. I'm still thankful for the show showing the truly harmful effects of suicide, how Hannah shouldn't be looked at as having no faults, that she had shades of gray just like everyone else. But I also enjoyed the theme of how everyone is tied to each other, how one action can cause a cascade of little events that we can't even comprehend. And I wonder, had I chosen to go through with what I wanted to do all those years ago, what would have happened? What would my friends be doing now? Would my parents still be together? Whose life would be worse? Whose life would be better? These are questions I ask myself a lot. But I'm more curious about what questions you have. Have you seen the show? What did you think? Can you imagine a life without me? Let me know down in the comments below. Sorry for the bummer of a video, but it was what was on my mind. We'll see each other on Thursday.